this is something that I'll show you in the MVC4 template, but these are semantic markup elements. So what we noticed over time is that people would create a new website, and they would have div ID equals header, div ID equals nav, right? And then you would have articles and footers. Everyone does this over and over. So we came up with these semantic elements where you can just create a nav tag, right? So that is good for a few reasons. One, it's easier to read. Two, any kind of, it's easier for JavaScript libraries or things like that to target that because it's a known item. And third, and maybe most important, is that CSS? Great, CSS. Who said it first? There you go. CSS is very, you already got one, didn't you? Who's second? There you go. All right, you didn't even say it. You just get it anyhow. It's nice for CSS, and the other thing I was thinking about is it's also good for accessibility. So I have a good friend that works at Microsoft London on the Bing team, and he has about 5% sight. He really can't see to develop, and so he uses a screen reader that reads aloud to him on the page. And he's shown me some things about what works well and what doesn't. Well, a nav element works very well, because a screen reader can look for that nav element and say, to someone that is visually impaired or has other reasons why they would need accessibility help, then it will go in and it will say, these are the navigation items on the page. Canvas, well, we already looked at that contour thing. We don't really have time to go in depth into how to use it, but it can be as simple as, you can get a drawing context, and then you can fill a rectangle and just start drawing. The important thing, everybody thinks about the canvas, and this is the slide we have for graphics, is the canvas. But SVG is also important. And SVG allows you to draw shapes that will resize. So the important thing here is that this doesn't resize as well. And people are getting very high DPI devices, iPads and Retina displays, and newer Windows laptops and things have very high DPI. And so you should think about also using SVG if possible for shapes. Video and audio. One thing I like to show with this, over this past year, on the ASP.NET site, we had a lot of videos that were all using a Silverlight player. And it's a good player because it has support for things like smooth streaming and other features. But here, at a wrong zoom level or something. Nice. So here is, for example, here's an MVC3 video. So I think this one, that's using the Silverlight player. But we decided we also wanted to support other devices that don't have Silverlight. Or maybe a developer just doesn't have Silverlight installed, right? So I'm going to go in here to Manage Extensions. And I'll show the HTML5 support we added, and then I'll explain how we did it. So I'm going to go Manage Add-ons. I'll go in this list to Silverlight. And I'll say Disable. So now it's redrawn that page, and this is an HTML5 video player. And it's the same video, but now this will work on an iPad or on a phone, right? And we see roughly, for some of these videos, we see roughly 20% of people viewing them using the HTML5, and that's growing. So we're seeing a lot of mobile device usage. And so in order to do this, we were able to, you don't have to make a choice. That's an important thing. We still, if people have Silverlight installed, that's going to be the best player for them because of that smooth streaming. It very quickly moves, and it optimizes for bandwidth. So if you're on a lower bandwidth, it can lower the resolution a little bit for you. So let's take a look at how we did this. We did not use browser sniffing. We didn't write a bunch of JavaScript in order to detect. In fact, we wrote 0 JavaScript. Okay, we didn't try and detect. And this is an important thing to keep in mind. People write JavaScript in places where they shouldn't. And then the JavaScript invariably has bugs, and there's no need for that. So here I'm going to zoom in. So here we're using a concept called default content. What default content does, this has been around in HTML forever. This has been around since very early HTML. These guys were smart that designed this. So here I've got an object tag, and it's over here. It says it's using the Silverlight object, right? Now, if I don't have Silverlight installed, it's going to look in here for some other content to display. And here's my HTML5 video tag. I could have swapped these. If I wanted the HTML5 to be the default, I could have the HTML5 with an object tag inside of it. And inside this video tag, we have, we have more default content. This says if you don't have Silverlight, and you don't have an HTML5 video player, then we have a link here where we can give you some more information about how to get a newer browser or install Silverlight. Or we say sorry, at least, right? So this is important. And this is when I was talking before about detecting features and not browsers. Here we didn't even have to write any code for this. We just use something that's been built into HTML forever. It's funny, when I'm talking about HTML5, I notice that a lot of the things that are important to me as a developer and things I care a lot about are about using things that have been in HTML for a long time. And it's now that HTML5 and newer features come out that it's more important to learn or to remember those, right? I don't argue with people about a lot of things, but I always argue about browser support. I get very frustrated when I find all that. If we only support this browser, or people writing things that aren't built the way the web was supposed to work. Let me see on time. Well, I just showed you the video element. You can have, so here we've got this default content. We also have multiple video source types. So that's one problem that we have with HTML5 video is support for codecs. Different browsers have support for different content types. So, Firefox, because it's completely open source, will only use codecs that are open source, and vice versa. So MP4 seems to be the most widely supported. But often you'll want to include multiple source types, and then include that fallback. Audio is the same. I think we've seen some demos. One more thing I want to show. Let me see. I want to show what we've got in an MVC4 application for HTML5 support. So I think here out we'll maybe go, lunch is supposed to start at 12. We'll go maybe till 12:05 or 12:10, and I'll just show a few things, and it's going to be only demos, okay? So here, if I create a new MVC4 app, so I'm going to create one using the internet application type. And this includes some HTML5 and some modern web features in here. One is it includes support for something called Moderniser. And Moderniser makes it so that you can target features, advanced HTML5 features, and they'll even work in previous versions of, like IE6. And remember before I talked about that nav element. So nav element is great, and I would like to be able to use it, but I still need to support some older browsers that have never heard of this nav element. And Moderniser allows me to do that. So here I'm going to look in the default layout. And we'll see that we've got some things in here like header, right? So here I've got a header tag. And here I've got a nav tag. So inside my nav, I've got a UL, and I've got my list items. So this will work, anybody that's writing CSS for this, anybody that's writing JavaScript, screen readers can immediately go on this page and they can find my top navigation item. You can have multiple nav on the page. You can also have, like in the footer, you can have additional navigation, right? So now we need to make sure that this also works in older browsers. And the way we do that is using this Moderniser library. So I'm going in here looking at the Moderniser library. This is included by default in the templates. And one of the first things that Moderniser does is it has some script that goes through and adds a bunch of, it appends all those elements. So where is that? It's somewhere in here where it goes through and it says, Internet Explorer, you've never heard of header. Well, here's how to use it. Let me see. I think this will, there it is. So this is a little bit of code that just goes through and it says, if this browser has never heard of all these new elements, like article and figure and nav and all that, just treat it like a div. And then we're good. So this will work. You can use HTML5 semantic markup, and it will work in older browsers. Let me see. One other thing that's nice, I think I'll show that later, actually, if we look at mobile. I'll show briefly. This is an HTML5. Well, it's just a modern web standard. This is called adaptive rendering. Sorry. The jet lag is finally starting to kick in. So here, this is called adaptive rendering. And the idea is, I'll go back over to the ASP.NET site, and we'll shrink that page down. So here's how this works at full size, right? But if I'm going to this on my phone, this is a terrible layout. This isn't easy to use on my phone. So I said before, we started to see more people using mobile devices. And so we want this page to adapt at a narrower device width. So now at a narrower device width, we simplify the header. We add in some better navigation. And we also make sure that it's readable on that narrower size. So this is, in order to do this, we're just going in and we're setting up a few things. We're setting a viewport. So the viewport just tells it tells a mobile device what size we want to use. So we're saying scale it to the device width. And then we go in our CSS. And the CSS has some mobile styles. So here if I go to, so this is using a media query. And a media query in CSS says, if the page is this width, then apply these following styles. So this says, for everything smaller than 850 pixels, simplify the page display. So there we start aligning things in the center, and we change it. We remove some extra layout items. So this, again, I want to remind you, I'm not writing any JavaScript here. This is just using HTML and CSS. And this also isn't using any server-side code. OK, so those are some of the features that are in HTML5 here. I think, based on, I'm trying to think, I want to spend about 10 more minutes, and I'm deciding between showing jQuery or showing single-page application. I think I'll show the jQuery now and then some single-page application after lunch. So jQuery is a very popular library. We've got a few slides here which I don't think are news to anybody. It's used all over the place. It's included by default. So you saw in those bundles we had earlier inside of the basic templates that we've got. So it does a lot of things for you. I think that the reason it first got most popular is because it's easy to use CSS syntax to find something on a page. So a lot of the time when people say they hate JavaScript, it's because browsers are all a little bit different. And they've gotten better as standards have progressed. But it can be very difficult to say, I want to find this thing on this page and I want to hide it, or I want to move it, right? I want to change something on the page. So what jQuery does is it allows you to use CSS selectors and find something on a page and then do something. So if we look in here, this is a selector. Anything in CSS, right, where we're applying a rule, this is a CSS selector. So we can also use these selectors inside of jQuery. So this is nice because we can use the same syntax, and then it's very powerful because jQuery figures out all the things for the different browsers and says, okay, if you want a table header, an ascending table header, and you want to find the anchor tag inside of it, it'll automatically find that. And then you can do something with that element. So once it's found it, then you manipulate it. One other thing that's nice is we've got tons of plugins. So you'll notice things like our validation that we saw on the MVC4 page where it was validating the email address. It was doing that using jQuery. All right, jQuery.com. That simplifies this slide down. So the idea with jQuery is you find something, and then you do something with it. So here, I'm finding every div on a page, and then I'm hiding it. You probably don't want to use this code. It will make most web pages pretty unusable. Here's this goes a little bit further. This is finding everything with a class of submit, so buttons, links, anything that has a .submit class, and then it hooks up a click event. So this is saying every time you click submit, it's going to give you an alert. This is a very simple example, but this is showing kind of the flow of how you would hook things up. More here. You know, we've got those slides, but I prefer to do, I think one of the things I like about learning HTML and JavaScript and stuff is to do it in an interactive way. So I'm going to go to something called JSBin. JSBin is one of many web pages that allow you to type in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and modify them and see it running in the page. So I have 3 daughters. I have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I wanted to teach, the 12-year-old asked me to teach her some programming. And I thought the simplest thing to start with was some JavaScript. And so we did exactly this kind of thing. First, she went through some websites where it taught, loops and things like that. And then we went and we just started modifying pages or going into a console and start changing things. So here, this is an example, of where we can go through. We have HTML. We select an item. And then we're doing some things. Fade out, fade in. We're adding in an unordered list. We're adding a list item. And then we're setting up a click event for that list item, right? So if I run this, so it fades out, fades in, and then if I click it, it disappears. So, what I recommend for learning jQuery, if jQuery is completely new to you, is going to the jQuery.com site. And there's also, there's a site called Codecademy. And Codecademy is what I used in teaching my daughter. So I realize jQuery is very old news to some people and maybe a little bit newer to others, so that's why I'm spending a little bit of time on this. But if you want to learn a bit more about jQuery, they actually have a course here. So you can go through, and this will teach in more depth. And again, this is one of those interactive sites. So I think it's 12:05. How about we take a break for lunch now? When we come back after lunch, we will dig in. Tuberk will be showing Web API. And then I'll show Office, a quick thing with Office. And then I'll show single-page apps later in the day. All right? So thank you.
Oturumda da sizlere Web API hakkında bilgi vermeye çalışacağım. ASP.NET Web API hakkında. Öncelikle sorayım, ASP.NET Web API hakkında hiçbir bilgisi olan ama hiç kullanan, daha önce duyan? var mı? Anladım. O zaman bu oturum tamamen sizler için olacak hemen hemen. Şimdi geliyor mu arkaya sesim? Arkaya geliyor mu sesim? Geliyor herhalde. Tamam. Bu oturumda sizlere Web API hakkında bilgi vermeye çalışacağım. Kısa bir oturum olacak. Çok uzun bir oturum değil. O yüzden daha üst düzey bir oturum olacak. Öncelikle oturumda ASP.NET Web API nedir, niçin var, neden hayatımıza girdi, onun hakkında kısa bir bilgi vereceğim. Ne gibi özellikler taşıyarak şu anda kullanmamız gerekir. Daha sonra küçük bir demo yaparak sizlere Web API'nin işlevini göstereceğim client ve server tarafında. Daha sonra da birkaç tane de ASP.NET Web API özelliğine bakacağız beraber. Daha advanced olan Web API özelliklerine çok kısaca sadece maddeler halinde geçeceğiz onu. ASP.NET Web API, HTTP servisler yaratmamız için bize sunulan bir framework. HTTP servislerden kastım tamamen RESTful servisler değil. Burada genelde akla gelen ilk önce bu. Normal herhangi bir HTTP servisi yaratarak siz Web API çok kolay bir şekilde bir HTTP servisini dışarıya açabilir ve bütün birçok çeşitli client'larla bu servisi konuşturabilirsiniz. Örneğin telefon, tablet, Windows 8 uygulaması, herhangi bir JavaScript uygulaması olabilir, Node.js uygulaması veya webten jQuery ile veya normal request ile, Ajax request ile bağlanabilirsiniz. Bize aslında sağladığı bu. Daha önceden farklı framework'ler vardı, hala da var. WCF'in REST support'u var. O şekilde de böyle bir API açmanız mümkün. MVC ile JSON result döndürerek yapmanız mümkün. Aralarındaki farklar ne diye soracak olursanız onu da şu saatte göreceğiz aslında. Burada ASP.NET Web API'nin getirdiği aslında bize birinci sınıf HTTP programlama modeli getiriyor. Bu WCF'de olmayan ve MVC'de de kısmen olan ama web servislere daha çok yatkın olmayan bir programlama modeli var MVC'de. Web API ise tamamen HTTP servisler yaratmamız için bize verilmiş bir framework. HTTP Message Handlers dediğimiz bir yapı üzerine kurulu ASP.NET Web API tamamen. Bu yapıda da en sonunda da göreceğiz slide'ın aslında Message Handler'lara biraz değineceğiz. Çünkü tamamen Web API Message Handler'lar üzerinde gidip geliyor. Strongly Typed HTTP Components var. Bundan kastımız nedir? Header'lar, metotlar, aklınıza gelebilecek HTTP ile ilgili bütün her şey size sınıflar olarak sunulmuş durumda. HTTP yani direkt class'lar üzerinden giderek anlamanız mümkün neler olup neler biteceğini. Request'ler, response'ları da çok rahat bir şekilde anlayabiliriz. Formatter dediğimiz bir tarafı var ASP.NET Web API'nin. Bu kısımda ise çeşitli formatlarda biz aynı payload'u döndürebiliriz. Buradan kastımız nedir? Örneğin bir araç objemiz var. Bu araç objesini JSON olarak karşıya döndürebiliriz. Fakat eğer client bizden bunu XML olarak istiyorsa XML olarak da döndürebiliriz. Veya tamamen farklı bir şey CSV formatında da döndürebiliriz. Bunu da formatterlar sayesinde yapabiliyoruz çok rahat bir şekilde ve HTTP'deki header'lardaki accept header'a bakarak hangi formatta döndüreceğimize karar verebiliyoruz. Content negotiation dediğimiz kısımda ASP.NET Web API bizim için handle ediyor kendisi. ASP.NET Web API oldukça scalable bir framework. Bunun en büyük sebebi ise baştan aşağı asenkron bir yapı üzerine kurulu olması. Örneğin herhangi bir I/O operasyonu yapıyorsanız controller'larınızda veya herhangi bir message handler'da authentication için örneğin asenkron olarak yapabilirsiniz. ASP.NET Web API baştan sona asenkron bir programlama modeli üzerine kurulu. Message handler'larda zaten baktığınızda göreceksiniz ki tamamen zaten asenkron programlama modeli dışında başka programlama modeli karşınıza çıkmıyor. ASP.NET Web API'nin aslında bir başka özelliği ise hosting layer'dan tamamen bağımsız olması. Aslında ASP.NET Web API dediğimizde birçok kişinin aklına gelen Web API'nin ASP.NET'in bir parçası olduğu. Aslında bu tamamen gerçek değil. Aslında .NET Web API demek biraz daha doğru. Bunun nedeni ise ASP.NET sadece bir tane hosting opsiyonu burada. Örneğin biz Web API'yi normal bir WCF layer'ın üzerinde host edebiliriz. Self host dediğimiz bir şekilde. Daha başka örnekler de var. Örneğin şu anda Katana diye bir proje var. Codeflex üzerinde giden Microsoft'un yürüttüğü bir proje. O projeyi üzerinde de Web API'yi host edebilirsiniz. Bunun yanında self-host, in-memory hosting imkanı var. In-memory host'tan kastımız da şu, testlerinizi, örneğin integration testler yazarken in-memory host edip API'nizi hiç HTTP request göndermeden gönderiyormuş gibi in-memory'de test edebilirsiniz. Bunun dışında ASP.NET Web API REST'in üzerine kurulu bir framework değil. Yani REST için kurulmuş bir framework değil ama REST için en ideal framework şu anda .NET site içinde. Demo ile devam edelim kısaca. ASP.NET Web API'yi proje template'ler üzerinden alabilirsiniz. Örneğin file new project diyerek şuradan göstereyim bir saniye. File new project dediğimizde karşımıza web kısmında MVC4 uygulaması çıkacak. Buradan yaratmak istediğimizde burada Web API proje template'ini göreceksiniz. Bu şekilde gidip yüklemediyseniz ASP.NET 4 var mı sizde? Olması gerekiyor. Daha sonra bakalım tekrar beraber ona. Web API kısmından buradan direkt başlayıp Web API projesi yaratabilirsiniz. Ama ben bunu bu şekilde yapmayı daha çok sevmiyorum. Çünkü MVC ile beraber getiriyor. Eğer direkt sadece Web API projesi yaratacaksanız şu şekilde yapmak da daha doğru olabilir. File new proje diyerek tekrar. Örneğin şu anda ben ASP.NET üzerinde host etme imkanını gösteriyor olacağım. Empty web application yaratıp daha sonra da NuGet paketini indirerek devam edebilirsiniz buradan. Install package. Microsoft ASP.NET Web API paketini indirerek bu paketi indirmeniz size yeterli olacaktır. Başka bir şey indirmenize gerek yok ASP.NET Web API için. Tekrar gitti herhalde. Burada bakacağım şu MVC biliyorsanız, MVC'ye aşinasanız ASP.NET MVC'ye Web API'de size çok yakın gelecektir. Çünkü Web API'da controller mantığıyla çalışıyor. Bizim bir controller'ımız var burada. Örneğin cars controller demişim ben burada buna. Bunun içerisinde gördüğümüz gibi burada get metodumuz var. Metodun adı get. Bu get olmasının sebebi var. Bunlardan bir tanesi ise şu. Ben get request gönderdiğimde HTTP'de biliyorsunuz verb'ler üzerine kurulu. Get, post, put, delete gibi. Ben get request gönderdiğimde routing üzerinden geçerek action selector beni bu action'a götürecektir. Daha sonra eğer get car diye bir metodum var burada. Burada da metodun signature'ı yukarıdakinden farklı olduğu için beni direkt buraya götürecek. Bunun sebebi de sadece bu. Burada da ben aynı şekilde normal .NET objeleri döndürerek formatı daha sonraya bırakıyorum. Yani controller formatla ilgilenmiyor. Sadece controller objeyi döndürmekle ilgileniyor. Herhangi biz burada spesifik, Web API'ye spesifik bir şey döndürmüyoruz. Az mı geliyor? Web API'ye spesifik bir şey döndürmüyoruz burada. Eğer istersek ama şu şekilde bir şey yapabiliyoruz. HTTP response message döndürerek header'ları manipüle edebilirsiniz veya HTTP response'da olan her şeyi manipüle ederek HTTP response mesajı döndürebilirsiniz. Bu şekilde. Çalıştırdığımızda projeyi ayrıca bunun yanında şu şekilde bir route tanımlamam var benim. Aynı MVC'de olduğu gibi burada da route'lar üzerine kurulu bir sistem var. Burada ben route'ı da tanımlarken API demişim. Başına statik bir segment verdim. Daha sonra controller'ı alıyorum. Daha sonra da ID'yi alıyorum. Yalnız ID'yi gördüğünüz gibi optional bir parametre. Versen de olur, vermesen de olur. Aynı şekilde burada ben alıp bunu Fiddler'ı bilen var mı aranızda? Kullanan var mı? Oo, çok kişi varmış. Güzel. Fiddler ile ben burada request gönderebilirim. Burada görüyorsunuz request'e URL'i yapıştırdım. Altında da hiçbir şey yazmasam da olur hatta şu anda. Fiddler zaten kendisi verecektir onları. Şu anda gönderiyorum. Get request yapıyorum burada da. Şurada görebileceğiniz gibi. Execute ettiğimde bana geriye döndürdüğü response şu şekilde bir response döndürüyor. Baktığımızda JSON döndürdüğünü görüyoruz. Ben accepted'ı belirtmedim ama bana JSON döndürdü. Bunun sebeplerinden bir tanesi ise şu. Default olarak JSON formatı birinci sırada. O yüzden bana JSON döndürdü. Ben daha önce de bahsettiğim gibi Content Negotiation ASP.NET Web API'de built-in olarak geliyor. Buraya ben accepted'a application XML yazarak XML olarak isteyebilirim ve bana XML olarak geri verecek bu sefer de. Baktığımda görüyorum ki XML olarak geri aldım. Eğer ben kendim formatör yaratarak yeni bir format desteklemek istersem bunu çok kolay bir şekilde yapabiliyorum. Onu da hemen çok kısaca şurada göstereyim. Web API'nin konfigürasyon objesi var. HTTP configuration. HTTP configuration altında birçok şey var. Bunlardan bir tanesi de formatters. Ben bu formatters collection'ına istediğim gibi herhangi bir formatör ekleyerek yeni bir format destekleyebiliyorum. Bunun yanında client olarak da örnek olarak şurada benim yaptığım bir web örneği var. Ben burada jQuery ile Web API'ye bağlandım. Web API'deki get metoduyla Web API'yi çağırıp sayfanın üzerinde display etme. Burada benim yapmak istediğim. Bunu da jQuery ile şu şekilde yaptım. Aynı şekilde gidiyorum ben. Button click'te get JSON ile API cars diyorum ve araçları alıyorum burada. Araçların döndürdüğü bana result ise array döndürecek. JSON array. Bunu da zaten getJSON metodu direkt JavaScript objesine çevirdiği için içerisinde döngü içerisinde tek tek alıp view modele pushluyorum. Bu view modelde burada tamamen knockout kullandım ben mesela örnek olarak. Onun için o şekilde. Yani burada benim aldığım artık tek bir araç objesi. Bundan sonra da direkt ben bunları basıyorum. Sayfaya bastığımda da şu şekilde for each ile burada döndürüyorum. Bu gösterdiğim tamamen knockout'a bağlı bir şey. Ama Web API ile bunu kullanmanıza hiç gerek yok tabii ki anlanabileceği gibi. Burada direkt ben display ediyorum ekrana. Şuradan bakacak olursak, hatta network tabını da açalım. Şuradan göreceğiz. Get cars'a bastığımda benim bir şekilde request'i gönderip response'u almam gerekiyor karşı taraftan. Gördüğünüz gibi ben request'i gönderdim, response'u aldım. Hepsini de sayfaya bastı. Network tabından da bakacak olursak gönderdiğim request bu. Aldığım response da bu. Preview'a baktığımızda JSON objelerini burada görebiliyorsunuz. Ama ASP.NET Web API sadece sırf jQuery ile çalışmıyor. Herhangi bir şekilde her türlü consume edebilirsiniz. Çünkü aslında baktığınızda sadece bir HTTP endpoint'iniz var. Buraya herhangi bir HTTP ile communication kurabilen herhangi bir cihazla, herhangi bir API ile Web API'ye bağlanabilirsiniz. Bunun da aslında güzel bir örneği Windows 8 client'ı. Örneğin mesela aklınıza gelebilir. Windows 8'den bağlanabilir miyiz? Bu da şimdi göstereceğimiz uygulamada olacağız. John, can we show the Windows 8 stuff? Okay.
Okay, hopefully this all works.
Yeah.
So here, this is a web API. This is our model. It's a simple model class. I've got a controller. This is exactly the same as Tuberk showed. So these are, get, update, delete. So you can't see it. Excellent. Thank you. Much better. Okay. So again, a simple contact class. This is a very simple model. We have a controller, and this works exactly the same. So we have, get list, get by ID. One thing I want to show is that I think you mentioned that one of the new features is tracing and help pages.
Yeah, I'm gonna show that, but
okay.
Yeah.
So here's my help page for this one.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I can reference it and everything the exact same way. I could use this in a web application. I can also use this in a Windows Store application. So I've got a Windows Store application here. This is starting up. Now this is code that's running. If we look in my Solution Explorer, I have two projects. This is my web API, and this is my Windows Store application. So in this, if you've done any Windows Store development, I created a grid application, and I went into the sample data source, and I changed the way that it loads data. So I'm creating a new HTTP client, and then I'm just binding it to the data. So I'm formatting it and binding it. Okay? So the important things to see, we call HTTP client, we set the service address, we get API contacts. So this right here, we get API contacts. And then we're just binding it to a list. So I have no idea what Tuberk said, but one of the things I like, one of the things I like about Web API is that the client and the server negotiate if they're using XML or JSON or whatever. So I don't need to use that in my Web API code or in my Windows Store code. I just say connect to this and HTTP client, go get me a list of contacts. So now I'm going to run this, and we'll see. So it's calling over to that service, and it's just bound a list of people, right? So now I can click on this, and there I am, right? So this is a Windows Store app. Poor Damian Edwards doesn't get a picture. But so this is an example, and the important thing, we were talking earlier about why we wanted to make the effort to show this. It's important to remember that Web API is not just about websites. It's about phones. It's about, there's Damian. It's about phones. It's about desktop applications. It's about console applications. It's about other servers, et cetera, right? So we're using HTTP to speak in a common language that other programs can work with.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Anything more for me, or should I?
No.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. By the way, this sample is available online, I think, through MSTN download, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be a link. If you want to download the sample, just ask me. I'm going to give you the link. I also blog about today's session, so you can get the links from there as well. Okay. Buraya kadar sorusu olan var mı? Kodla ilgili şu anda yapacağımız her şeyi bitirdik. Sorusu olan varsa bu alanda soru alabiliriz. Evet. Efendim? Telefondan bağlanırken güvenliğini soruyoruz. Güzel bir soru. ASP.NET Web API sana hiçbir authentication mekanizması sağlamıyor. Authentication mekanizmasını tamamen senin kendini sağlaması gerekiyor. Örneğin telefondan bağlanırken yapabileceğin ne olabilir? OAuth kullanabilirsin. Kendin bir OAuth client yazarak OAuth server'ına bağlanıp Web API'ye de OAuth authentication'ı sağlattırabilirsin. Yani senin yapacağın şu, karşı taraftaki karşı taraftaki client'ın sana bir token gönderir. Sen o token'a göre onu authenticate edersin. Ve her request'te o sana token'ı gönderip getirir ve sen onun kim olduğunu bu şekilde öğrenebilirsin. Authentication'ı bu mekanizmayla sağlayabilirsin. Basic Authentication kullanabilirsin her şeyden önce. Sadece base64 encode ederek password'u ve username'i o şekilde handle edebilirsin. Yani aslında baktığında ASP.NET sana hiçbir security demeyeyim de authentication mekanizması vermiyor. Tamamen kendini yapman gerekiyor onu.
Bence arkadaş çok güzel bir soru sordu.
Evet.
ESP hak etti bence.
Efendim?
ESP hak etti diyorum.
Ha doğru. Right. Can we give away USBs? Yep. Evet. Evet. Aynen evet. Doğru söylüyor arkadaş. Dominic Bayer diye çok iyi bir developer var. Alman bir developer. Onun yazdığı ve Brock Allen'ın yazdığı I'm just mentioning the think teacher identity model, yeah, right? Onu kullanabilirsiniz. O da çok iyi doküman. Vereceğim. Ben de zannedersem şu anda internet yok. Bir saniye. Şu gördüğünüz adres, arkadaşım bahsettiği kütüphanenin adresi. Buradan kütüphane hakkında bilgi alabilirsiniz ama NuGet paketi de var bunun. Burada birçok authentication mekanizması var. Bunu kullanarak Web API'ye bağlayabilirsiniz ve Web API ile de iyi bir şekilde çalışabilirsiniz bu şekilde. Tokenbased özellikle birçok token-based authentication sağlıyor. Ayrıca NDC'de geçen yıl you are remembering the Dominic Bayer's session from NDC last year.
Which
Web API security session, Dominic Bayer's, yeah, NDC session. Yeah. Şu adresten de o oturumun videosuna ulaşabilirsiniz. Burada 1 saat boyunca Web API Security hakkında konuşuyor Dominic Bayer. Birçok örnek veriyor Token-Based Authentication hakkında. Bu da güzel bir örnek. USB verelim. Başka soru olan var mı? Tam gelmiyor ama ses. Tabii. Web API ile web servisin tam olarak farkını anlayamadım dediniz. Web servisten kasıt ne olduğunu tam olarak ben de bilmiyorum şu anda. Çünkü Web API, şöyle düşünelim aslında, bir elinizde bir datanız var ve siz bu datayı transfer etmek istiyorsunuz bir şekilde. Güvenli veya güvensiz. O konu farklı bir durum şu anda. Datayı transfer edeceksiniz. HTTP üzerinden bunu yapıyorsunuz ve HTTP bir application protokol ve bunun HTTP'nin getirdiği nimetlerden faydalanıyorsunuz. Bunlar nelerdir? HTTP'nin standartlarından, caching'den, header'larından yararlanıyorsunuz. Content negotiation mekanizmasından yararlanıyorsunuz. Aslında yaptığı sadece header gönderip header almak ama bilinen bir protokol olduğu için birçok client bunu implement etmiş durumda. Ve HTTP de TCP üzerinden gidip geliyor zaten. Yani web servisten kasıt eğer SOAP web servislerse ya SOAP web servislerde bir telefon uygulamasından veya bir herhangi başka bir tablet uygulamasından çok kolay bağlantı sağlamanız şu anda çok mümkün değil. Ama Web API ile siz her türlü bir HTTP client'ınız varsa onunla bir HTTP request oluşturarak bağlanabilirsiniz. Hatta row soket açıp TCP soket onun üzerinden bile gönderebilirsiniz bağlantınızı ve alabilirsiniz. Ya ben aslında kişisel olarak SOAP'la ilgili SOAP kullanmanın artık hani çok avantajlı olduğunu düşünmüyorum ama tamamen application'a bağlı. Tamamen Web API ile hemen hemen her şeyi yapabilirsiniz ve her şeyi kullanabilirsiniz. Artık zaten bu tarafa doğru giden bir endüstrinin içerisindeyiz. Çünkü lightweight uygulamalar, lightweight application'lar var karşımızda ve ayrıca bir de core support'u ile beraber HTTP üzerinde browserların uyguladığı core support'u ile beraber çok rahat cross origin request'ler gönderip web API'larınızı consume edebilirsiniz o şekilde de. Yani SOAP servisini bir web üzerinden consume etmeniz çok mümkün değil şu anda. Yani o bir şey var. USB daha sonra buradan atmayayım şimdi.
Well, time's up anyways.
Yeah. Başka bir soru, son bir soru alalım. Orayı sormuştuk. Güzel bir soru. ASP.NET Web API tamamen Dependency Resolver üzerine kurulmuş bir durumda. Herhangi bir IOC konteynerinizi Web API'ye bağlayabilirsiniz ve IOC konteyner zaten life cycle'ını objelerinizin ayarlayacaktır. O şekilde her pipeline'ı başından sonuna kadar götürebilirsiniz. Efendim? Aynı singleton objeler yaratabilirsiniz. Diğer sorusu olan varsa daha sonra alabiliriz. Çok vaktimiz kalmadı herhalde. Bitmiş hatta. Evet. Okay, Can. I'm done.
Okay? All right, so this is our plan. We have a lot packed into the day, so we move things around a little bit to make sure we talk about everything that we think is interesting and give the right amount of time. I'm going to give a very quick, maybe shorter than 15 minutes, look at Office. And I'll hopefully surprise you with something you can do with Office and HTML5. After that, we'll take a quick look at single-page applications. I didn't get to show some of that earlier, and I would like to give a demo, then some other things. I've got a book to give away. So here's the way I'm going to do this. If you tweet, the first person to tweet this to me with a link to a site that you've deployed to Azure websites, it can be a new, web forms, MVC4, whatever. But anyone here, the first person to tweet that to me with a link will get the book. All right? Otherwise, we'll just keep throwing USB sticks at you. Okay, and it has to be before I leave Istanbul today, or, at the end of the day. Okay, so here's a look at something new with Office that I hadn't realized until recently. You can build, using HTML5 and jQuery, also using Web API, as Tuberk just showed you, you can build applications that run inside of an Office document. So that means inside of Word or Excel or whatever. So you can if you have Office 2013, that's the only requirement. If you have Office 2013, including Outlook, you can go in and you'll find in the header in the page, there's a thing where you can install, you can get apps for it. I'm not going to bore you with slides. The only things I really want to show you are you can have it running against a website. So there are people that are doing things like they have HTML5 video help for Excel developers, and they're running it in an MVC site using HTML5 video, and it shows up in Excel, and they charge money for this. So there are all kinds of things you can do with this. This is nice when you remember that there are 1 billion Office users worldwide, so you can sell things in a store and potentially make a good amount of money. They also have support for SharePoint. So in the future, you can build SharePoint applications without having to spend a lot of time and reading a lot of books about how SharePoint works. Now you can build HTML5 applications that plug into SharePoint. If you go to devcamps or dev.office.com, that's a good place to find out more. And I'm going to show you a quick demo, and then we'll move on. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. Now I went to dev.office.com, and I installed, there's a developer kit thing for Office. So there's some dev tools. So now I'm going to go in, and I'm going to create a new project, and I think I want to create an empty website. Empty web application. It's been a little bit since I did this, so I may not remember. Once this starts up, I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to say something about Office in this list. Add app for Office project. So I have a few choices here of where I want to make this available. So I can make something that works everywhere, or I can say I only want this to work, say, in Excel and Word. So there are three types. I'll just show you briefly. A task pane is something that shows in the side, and it works with the page. Using JavaScript inside of your task pane, you can then work with the page. We also have a content app, which shows in Excel, and that would be for something like if you want an Excel document to be able to, when you hit print, it's going to get charts or graphs or other information off of the internet and show up in the page. And then last is, it's interesting, but way outside of the scope, is the idea of a mail application. So this is something that plugs into Outlook. All right? You can tell it's late in the day when I'm clicking the next button on the PowerPoint thing for Visual Studio. OK, so what it's doing now is it's setting up an HTML page, and it's adding some JavaScript libraries. And so this is already kind of strange for us, right? It's using JavaScript to call or to update an Excel document. So that's what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to go into an Excel document, and I can update or delete or change things just based on a click, right? So I think, do I have a page set up? I do have a page set up. So if I go into, this is my Excel application. You'll see this is HTML5. It's got a reference to JavaScript at the top. So I can use CSS, JavaScript, HTML. And I've got 2 buttons and some text. So I'm actually, before I run this, I'm going to go in here and I'll say, hello. Right? And what this is going to do is it's going to get and set data in an Excel file using JavaScript. So I'll show quickly where that script is again. But this is just using JavaScript to say, on the click event for the set button, then go in and set data. And the way that that set data is, it's calling office.context, blah, 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 and it's setting the information. Okay? So get and set. So now I'm going to run this. This will pop up Excel, and it'll host my application in basically an iframe. So it's a stripped down version of IE10 that's running in the side. So notice here where I put in that HTML. Here it says, hello, Istanbul. So this is an HTML document. You saw me update it. So now I'm going to go in here, and I will say, this is a nice day. And then I'll click on this cell, and I click set data. Right? And then here, if I want to click, here's a number, and I click get data. And it's because that didn't work because it was expecting text. There we go. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong.
You need to leave the cell.
Leave the cell?
Set the cell again.
Like that? Thank you. There it is. OK, thank you. So I wasn't moving the focus. So that's a very simple HTML and JavaScript document, right? So I have one other thing I want to show you. This is just HTML. This is JavaScript running this. I have another one which is running using Web API. So we're actually getting a list of information and updating it onto a server. So that is this one here. Going pretty fast. My goal with this session is just to show you that this is here and show you that you can do it. If you have to do Office development in the future, this is easy to play with. There's also availability. You can sell things in a store with this. So this is a very simple. It's a table and a button. So when I select something on a page, it's going to post them all back to the server using Web API. So I'll run it, and then I'll show the JavaScript and the Web API. So people who answered the questions there, are people doing Office development? Are people working with this now? Or do you just know it? OK. This is, I don't think anyone really knows about this, and it's very interesting to me what you can do. So loading, loading, loading. I wonder if I have a breakpoint. No? OK. So here I'm filling in some data. OK. So I have a few people listed. Now, before I hit save, I'm actually going to go into my controller, and I'm going to set a breakpoint. We'll just see when that happens. OK. So I'll go in here, hit save. Now it's saying, which data do you want to send back to the server, right? So I hit OK. And this is actually going to fire my Web API. So now that data has been posted back in JSON. So this is JavaScript object notation. And Web API knows how to work with JSON data very well. And so it's just going to save it. Now, for this case, it's just returning some strings saying that the data was saved. But it could also be putting the, it could be posting these somewhere else or putting them in a database or whatever, right? So this called in, and it saved the data. And there they are. So this is the updated message. So we had data in Excel. We clicked a save button that we wrote with JavaScript. It called back into a controller. The way it's doing that is we've got a little bit of JavaScript wired up here that's saying, we're wiring up the things. This is the actual post back, right? So it's saying when you click, this is standard jQuery here. For the click event, it's calling back in, it's posting the data, and then it receives the data back, and this is how it writes out the information, right? So actually, this is get data. So this is where it's getting the data, right? So that's really all there is to it. That's really all I wanted to show off. I just wanted to show you that it's there. I hadn't known about it, and I think it's nice to remember that you can use your HTML5, JavaScript, Web API skills beyond just web pages.